Welcome back to the Kentucky Derby Player Show here at MGM Northfield Park. Michael Carter alongside of Kenny Livigood. We just saw the ad for the $200,000 Battle of Lake Erie coming up on Saturday, June the 7th. You've been here, correct me now, 2 Battle of Lake Erie's, correct?
This will be 3.
This will be your third. And
third
you've
time's
gotten
the
to call. I don't know about that, man. You've gotten to call some pretty stellar horses.
We've had some great races. Lochinvar, Lauren Tritton, the first female to win. And then last year, Little Rocket Man finally got his glory in the battle. It was his 3rd try, and he qualified and raced extremely well. So I'm excited to see if Little Rocket Man can go back-to-back. I think he'll be in the race this year. So
I know Dave's looking at him already. So
yeah, he'll be here.
Yeah. All right, race number 12 at Churchill Downs is the 151st Kentucky Derby. And what started out as 20 with an AE of 21 is now down to a field of 19 with, I was going to say
Rodriguez
Bayern,
Rodriguez and Grande are
both are
scratched. So.
And then, of course, the horse that I like, and we'll touch on this here in a second, the 21, Beza. But we're going to go through the entire field here. We're going to start with the 1, Citizen Bull. Martin Garcia rides for trader Bob Baffert. It's coming off a 4th-place effort at the Santa Anita Derby. And, Kenny, I got to tell you, I'm not really sure what to do with that Santa Anita Derby. There was only 5 horses in it. It wasn't that great of a field. And, it's going to be tough for Citizen Bull here in this one.
The problem is you got 5 horses. 1 was 50 to 1, so you basically had 4 horses, and 3 of them are showing up here in the Kentucky Derby. So what you got to take an opinion and a stance on the race. He's got the rail. The rail is not a good place to be in the Kentucky Derby. However, with it being a speed horse, he can send, so I think it helps his chances. He is the 2-year-old champion. He won his first start of the year. He was really bad in the Santa Anita Derby with no real excuse. I don't know. It's Bob Baffert. It's his first Derby starter in a couple of years. He's won the Derby plenty of times. I'm not using him. I feel like if he wins, I'm going to probably kick myself, but I'm throwing him out from the rail.
All right, number 2, and I'm going to let you take this one. It's the Saffie Joseph Jr. trainee.
Yeah, Saffie comes in with Neo Equos. This horse has raced 3 times this season. That's why you wanted me to take it.
Yeah,
the name.
I wanted you to say his name.
He did win over the sloppy track. His first start of the year off a couple months, and then they put him on the Fountain of Youth, or in the Fountain of Youth. He raced 3rd, and he showed speed. He challenged a horse, River Thames, who we'll probably see in the Preakness. I was there for the race there, the Fountain of Youth, and Sovereignty really flew late, which is why we'll touch on him later. And then 3rd again in the Florida Derby. I do think this is a really nice horse that Saffie has. It's a very $22,000 purchase, C2 Racing. They have strong horses in Florida. I think he's a little better shorter, and I think he's probably slightly overmatched in here. But I do think this is a nice horse, and I would like to see him down the road maybe in some shorter races or even just a 1.125 stake. I just think the 1.25 probably going to be too much for him.
And he's going to get a rider change here to Louis Saez. So
yes, Pratt picks up the out AE horse.
Which is another reason why I'm all for that horse. But we'll get to that in a second. The 3 horse is Final Gambit. It is the Brad Cox trainee, and it's really hard to throw out Brad Cox in any sense of the word. And, it's weird to see a Brad Cox horse be 30 to 1 here, but is coming off of a victory in the what I would call the stakes race at Turfway, the Jeff Ruby Stakes. Did come off of Lasix for that race, and that's one thing about the horses in the Kentucky Derby, no Lasix, and so some of them have to really adjust to that, and he handled it well. What do you make of Final Gambit here?
Yeah, I have him in the mix. I put him 4th just because he raced really well in that Jeff Ruby. The Jeff Ruby's produced some good horses. 2 Phils came back and finished 2nd in the Kentucky Derby and then won the Ohio Derby just up the road. And then Rich Strike obviously came out of the Jeff Ruby and won. So the race has been productive of late. There's a lot more good horses that go there. This horse has never been on dirt, so he has to take to the dirt for the first time. However, he has a sibling that is a stakes winner around 2 turns on dirt. So it's not that he necessarily won't handle it, and he's a gray horse that was rolling last time, so if you like grays, there's maybe a hunch play there. But he flew home, and if there's any pace in the Derby and Final Gambit likes the dirt, maybe Juddmonte gets their Derby win here. And Brad Cox won the Oaks yesterday, so he looks to sweep the double.
All right, number 4, Rodriguez is out. 5, American Promise, Dwayne Lucas will train. This is a horse that has really turned things around since adding blinkers back in October. The lone really kind of rough effort was in the Southwest, but that was the first start off of about a month or so layoff. Finished 5th in the Risen Star. Went to the Virginia Derby back where I'm from and just absolutely romped. What did you make of that Virginia Derby field, and what do you think of American Promise here?
I'm not sure how good the field was. I won't discount what American Promise did. That was very impressive. It was first time that Nick Juarez rode him. The effort in the Southwest, Tyler Bacon very young, maybe inexperienced a little bit, so maybe he didn't get the best ride. It looks like he kind of moved into the pace and then flattened out, but they got the rider switch to Nick Juarez. It worked at Colonial. It was a one-turn race, so now he's got to go back around 2 turns. Maybe he was better shorter. Dwayne Lucas shocked last year in the Preakness, so maybe he can get it here in the Kentucky Derby. This is a horse that's taking a little bit of money that I'm not using, but he's a part of this pace, and if you don't think the pace is going to be hot, American Promise can stick around.
All right, and Nick Juarez is a jockey you and I were cheering for a little bit earlier this
Yes,
afternoon.
with Dwayne Lucas.
With Dwayne Lucas, so already a victor. The Japanese runners, I swear, are going to win a Derby here sooner or later, and why not with Admire Daytona? It's coming off of a victory in the UAE Derby, and I swear I'm the first one to tweet it out every year after the UAE Derby because it never produces a winner. That whoever wins the UAE Derby is going to win the Kentucky Derby. But Admire Daytona
You're going to be right one day.
actually has a shot here. Was a winner in a race in Tokyo in February. Shipped to back to the same track. On pretty short rest. It was 4th, beaten 3 1/4 lengths. Took a little bit of time off. Won by a nose in the UAE Derby in a race that was really, really good. Heart of Honor raced really huge that afternoon.
Yeah, Admire Daytona was very game, too. He didn't look like he was going to win. He was part of the pace, and he hung around. He's another one that could be part of this pace scenario. I just don't think they're that good this year. I don't think our Japanese horses that came over this year, they're not forever young like last year. So I'm against them. It's a sprint pedigree. Dre Fong, a Breeders' Cup Sprint winner. Yep. The dam is a Shackelford dam. So even though Shackelford did win the Preakness, he was much, much better shorter. So I think Admire Daytona, I don't trust that he's going to get the distance, even though he did win the UAE Derby. I'm not sure how strong the race was in general. And Luxor Cafe beat him both times they've raced against each other.
Oh, go ahead and let's talk about
Luxor Cafe. So this horse actually isn't Japanese bred. He's all American. It's American Pharaoh. The dam is bred. This horse was bred in Kentucky, just happened to race in Japan. Yep. So this isn't that typical Japan horse that comes over and they've been dominating all these big stakes in the United States. So 4-race win streak, very good. I obviously don't watch a ton of races from Japan, so I kind of defer to some people that are much more experienced and watch races there. And they thought that maybe Luxor Cafe, and this is going to sound a little crazy, that he's better going right-handed because a lot of the races in Japan are run the other way. His worst race, or the race that he kind of struggled, was the race that he turned left, which he will in America didn't run the turn as good, whereas the races where he went right, or clockwise, yes. He raced really well. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference. This jockey is nicknamed the Magic Man. Can Japan get a winner here? Again, I'm not sure that this counts as a Japan winner, though, because the horse isn't Japan bred.
Okay. All right. The prospective favorite, the Kentucky Derby, at least based on the numbers we've seen now, and there's probably close to $10 or $12 million in the win pool right now. It is the 8 Journalism for Michael McCarthy. Umberto Rispoli picks up the mount. Again, it's tough because these California shippers, there's not a whole lot of racing going on in California right now, obviously, with the closure of Golden Gate Fields. And so Santa Anita has kind of picked up the slack. But, he's won 3 straight races, but look down the lines here, 5, 5, and 5. So who is he really beat? The question becomes, how good is Journalism? I guess we're going to find out today. He has, however, the work back on April the 19th was pretty good at Santa Anita, but when he shipped over to here to Churchill Downs, that work wasn't super awesome. Nothing eye-popping.
Yeah, it was just a maintenance work, I guess. The work at Santa Anita was really good. He's on a 4-race win streak. He's never lost going around 2 turns. The distance is going to get him. He's a Curlin son. He's an $800,000 purchase. Michael McCarthy had a winner yesterday, so the barn obviously doing well. You touched on it, 5 horses. And again, the Santa Anita Derby basically was a 4-horse field. He did have adversity, though, in there, and I think that showed that maybe he can overcome things, even though he's going to have to face 18 other horses here in a 19-horse field. But Journalism, he got bounced and pinned, and then he angled to the outside, and he ran down a horse that we both like in Baeza, and it was a really good performance. Journalism is one of 2 horses on every speed figure that has run over 100. He's the fastest horse in the race, and I'm certainly not going to be shocked if he wins. I'm using him. It's just the favorite in the Derby. Anything can happen, so I like playing against them. But I do think this Derby's a little bit more formful than they've been. and journalism. I certainly respect him, but yeah, he's got to face a big field. The jockey's only been in 2 derbies before, so there's reasons to not like him. But he is the fastest horse, and he's the deserving favorite for sure.
9 Burnham Square, Brian Hernandez Jr. picks up the mount, was a winner by a nose in the Bluegrass, which got moved from Saturday to Tuesday thanks to the rain, or Monday, whatever it was. But raced very well in the Bluegrass after racing in the Fountain of Youth down at Gulfstream Park, and seems to really like that Keeneland surface. So maybe Kentucky is kind of where he needs to be.
Yeah, this is a horse that he's got a third at Churchill. He's continued to get better. I think that's the difference with this horse. Ian Wilkes, a little bit more of an old school kind of run to the Derby.
Yep.
No layoff. This horse hasn't had a break. He's raced once every month, so this is the perfect 4-week break for him. I loved him going into the Holy Bull. Bet him in the Holy Bull, and he won. And then I really, really liked him in the Fountain of Youth because his Holy Bull was so good. He moved into the race. I like horses that can make their trip, and he moved into the race, and then he didn't really run in the Fountain of Youth. I'm not quite sure why. He did get really sweaty behind the gate, and luckily I was there, so I could actually see that. He was very hot, and I don't know, maybe he just gets like that. I know they're concerned about the amount of people. They've said that he's a hard horse to be around. He gets very animated, so that's a little concerning, especially the Bluegrass on Tuesday. Certainly was a much smaller crowd than they wanted. So now you have 150,000 people. I like Burnham Square. I know people that like him. He's going to be one of those closers. I think he'll run his race. Brian Hernandez got the win with him in the Bluegrass. He's going to be wide just because he's a closer. I didn't have him in my mix, but I'm using him. I won't get beat by Burnham Square.
All right, we are 9 horses down, 10 to go, and we're going to take one final timeout here before we go over the final 10 horses in the 151st Kentucky Derby. We'll be back in just a moment.
On in 3, 2.
Welcome back to the Kentucky Derby Player Show. Michael Carter alongside of Kenny Livingood. And Kenny, we are 9 horses down, 10 to go. And it's going to be an exciting Kentucky Derby with another 21 getting in. It seems like the 21 always seems to make their way.
Yeah, these horses that are on the AE list, they all should enter because we always have 1 or 2 scratches, which is frustrating, especially when you're looking at the race on Monday and Tuesday and you come up with horses. I know I was a little interested in Grande, so it was sad to see him scratch. But in fact, both horses out of the Wood Memorial scratched. So New York doesn't have a Derby threat this year. So for you New York fans, unfortunately, both horses were scratched.
All right, race number 12 is the Kentucky Derby. Again, it is a field of 19, and number 11 is Flying Mohawk. Whit Beckman is the trainer of the son of, of course, I was going to say son of, and I can't pronounce the...
Caraconti.
Caraconti, there we go.
Japanese bred.
Yeah, of course. Was second in the Jeff Ruby Stakes down at Turf Paradise, and I know you had some comments about Flying Mohawk we talked a little bit earlier about.
Yeah, Flying Mohawk out of that Jeff Ruby. Whit Beckman had a horse yesterday in the Kentucky Oaks, finished 30-1, finished second. So this horse has worked extremely well since the Jeff Ruby. He took advantage of a hot pace. I don't think he's better than the horse that won the race, Final Gambit, who we talked about earlier. So I'm not sure Flying Mohawk, and this horse doesn't have any dirt pedigree. So I don't really think he's going to handle the dirt at all versus the other one that does have some dirt pedigree in Final Gambit. So Flying Mohawk never been on dirt. I think they're taking the Derby shot. I think right after this race he's probably right back on turf. And, Jason Worth owns the horse. Jason Worth obviously owned Dornoch last year, who won the Belmont Stakes. So see if Jason Worth, who's basically owned like 3 horses, has been in the Kentucky Derby in 2 years. So he's had some success as an owner.
Number 12 is the Godolphin-owned East Avenue, is coming in out of a second-place effort in the Bluegrass after leading for much of the race and just got nailed right on the wire. That was a pretty good effort. And listen, a horse coming off of a big effort like that at 21 on the morning line when, maybe some of the other horses like Journalism and Sandman, who we'll talk a little bit about, are going to take a lot of the money.
Yeah, East Avenue, he loves Keeneland, for sure. His 2 fastest races are at Keeneland. He does his best when he's able to dictate the pace, and I'm not sure if he's able to dictate it here because you have horses like Citizen Bull, American Promise that are inside of him that are going to have to go. He's going to be at least 3 wide in the first turn. It is his 3rd start off the layoff, which is usually a good angle. This horse was the favorite in the Breeders' Cup last year. He broke Terrible, and you can draw a line through that effort, fine, but the Risen Star, he just sat a stalking trip and completely folded like a cheap tent, and then came back and raced really well in the Bluegrass. So I'm not sure if he needs the lead or if he just loves Keeneland. East Avenue, not on my tickets. I just don't see it here today.
All right, Publisher is the 13, coming out of a 2nd place effort at the Arkansas Derby to Sandman. Was 4th to Cole Battle 2 starts ago. Is trained by Steve Asmussen. It's another son of American Pharaoh, a Triple Crown winner.
10 years ago, American Pharaoh. So can the 10-year anniversary, one of his sons, get the job done? $600,000 purchase. He's never won a race. He's never won a race.
Isn't it? It's time to break your maiden. Right
yeah.
now.
It's to get enough points without winning shows that he's talented. He's had unlucky trips in the Derby races. The Southwest, he was making a run there and got slammed into the rail. They made the rider change to Flavian Pratt in the Rebel. He got squeezed at the start, and Pratt waited a long time with him. I think they want him to make one run. He made the run. He got in the mix. He finished 4th. They stretched him out to the mile and 1/8 for the Arkansas Derby, and the pace collapsed. He got a good setup in there, so I'm a little against the horses that got perfect trips, which is why I'm off Sandman, but I certainly respect people that like him. But Publisher, I just don't see a maiden winning the Kentucky Derby.
No, it's just tough. It's going to be really tough. Listen, it's tough to win the race anyway, but if you win it as a maiden, that's...
And as good as Irad Ortiz is, the best, probably the best rider in the country, arguably the best rider in the country, he's had 10 starts in the Derby and never hit the board, which is actually quite an amazing stat.
All right, 14 Tistastic. Joel Rosario rides for, again, Steve Asmussen. Is coming off of a victory in the Louisiana Derby. Was 5th in the Rebel. They shipped over to Fairgrounds trying to get a win, and they got it to get their spot into the Kentucky Derby starting gate.
Yeah, he wasn't particularly sharp at Oaklawn or Churchill. He's 0 for 2 here. He did run 2nd and 3rd, but his Louisiana Derby, the one thing I do like about him is that he's basically already been 1.25 miles, right? The 1 3/4 is the longest prep race for North American horses, not counting the UAE Derby. So Tistastic, I like that he already got the distance. I like that Joel Rosario is on him because Joel Rosario, I think, is the best finishing rider in the country. So Tistastic, I think there's a lot to like about him. I'm not using him because I'm not sure how strong the Louisiana Derby is. The other horse that's in the race from the Louisiana Derby is going to be 30, 40 to 1. So just not sure how strong the race really was.
All right, 15 is Render Judgment. I know there's a lot of country music fans who want to see Render Judgment win. Toby Keith, who passed away last year, he always wanted to have a horse at the Kentucky Derby. He's got one here this afternoon with Render Judgment. And I got to tell you, the sire of Render Judgment is a horse that I don't care for at all because he beat my wonderful, wonderful filly in the Breeders' Cup Classic in Zenyatta. It is Blame. But Render Judgment ships over from Keeneland after finishing 5th in the Bluegrass, was 2nd in the Virginia Derby. This is a horse that is 0 for 3 this year, only has 1 career victory, and ends up in a pretty stacked field. It's going to be tough for Render Judgment, but who knows? Maybe there will be some beer for their horses later on tonight.
Yeah, Render Judgment. For the sake of the story, I mean, I hope he runs well. I hope he wins, but it won't be with any of my money, that's for sure. The pace held together a little bit in the Bluegrass, but Burnham Square was behind him, and Burnham Square finished well ahead of him. He was very one-paced in there. I think he's overmatched in here.
All right, 16, Cole Battle, the Lonnie Brilly trainee for Juan Vargas, ships over from the Arkansas Derby after finishing 3rd. Did win the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes against Sandman, who didn't have the best of races in the Rebel. We'll get to that in a second. Kind of took the path of, I don't want to call it American Pharaoh, Smarty Jones from, a long time ago. So, went to the Smarty Jones Stakes, raced in the Rebel, raced in the Arkansas Derby, and you see a lot of those horses kind of go to Oaklawn and kind of follow that pattern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this horse he races the turns very well. I have a good buddy of mine that watches a lot of replays and thinks that Cole Battle is one of the smoothest moving horses around the turn, kind of smaller horse, and can really zip around the turn. So he might give you a thrill at the top of the stretch. He has, if you look at DRF, he has the lowest Tomlinson in the race for the distance. So I just really don't think he's going to get a mile and a quarter. He was the first one to move into the Arkansas Derby pace, which was just supersonic, cornucopian. Going out there, they were just winging with Speed King. So I thought the fact that he hung around to be third because he moved into the quick pace, you could use that as an excuse as to why he finished third and was beaten handily. But a mile and a quarter, I think, is ultimately just gonna be what gets him beat more than his talent.
In this spot. Now, if he beats me, he beats me. But it's going to be tough, I think, for Sandman to win. Maybe use underneath. But what do you think?
Yeah, Sandman, $1.2 million purchase, so they obviously had high hopes for him. Metallica, it's a great name. I love the name. So Yankee fan, so heard Sandman a lot. But he took advantage of a super, super, super fast pace in the Arkansas Derby. He rolled, he won. He's very green. He just doesn't seem like he's mentally all there yet. He was lugging out in the stretch, and in a race with 19 horses where you're going to get bounced around, you're going to get slammed. Is this a horse that's mentally able to be bounced around and still put in his best race? Like a horse like Journalism, who was bounced around in the San Antonio Derby and still went on to win. That's my concern with Sandman. He's going to be far back. He's probably going to be 17th, 18th, and that's a long way behind, even though I am picking a closer. But that's a long way to come, and it's a horse that's going to have to weave through traffic. And his only win in his last 3 starts in the stakes races was the Arkansas Derby, where he took advantage of a fast pace. And like you said, 0 for 3 at Churchill, and they've been poor efforts. He was 5th in the Iroquois with no real excuse there. So maybe he doesn't like Churchill.
All right, mind that bird. We'll see what happens.
Mind
that bird was what, 18th, 19th?
Whatever last was by a lot, and then first by a lot.
It was amazing, wasn't it? Come up the rail for Calvin Burrell.
I actually watched they had a drone shot of that on YouTube. I just watched maybe Thursday,
and
incredible. It's just incredible the fact that Calvin Burrell gave. It's one of the greatest Derby rides of all time.
Him and Rich Strike, watching him and Rich Strike's Derby from first of all, it was great watching it live, but watching the aerial shot of that is just amazing to watch what they had to do.
Try watching Rich Strike at a wedding on a phone, not knowing if it's the 2 or the 21, and they're both 100 to 1, and you need epicenter for a pick 4, and you get run over by the longest shot on the board. So that wasn't too thrilling for me.
All right, 18, Sovereignty was second in the Florida Derby after winning the Fountain of Youth. Did win the Street Sense at Churchill Downs by 5 lengths. Gets a win over the racetrack, so that's good news. That was over a fast track that day, going a mile and a 16th. Picks up the services of Junior Alvarado.
Yeah, this is my top choice in here, so I'm going to touch base with him. That race at Churchill was incredible. Horses don't make, especially young horses, make big sweeping 6-7 wide moves, and there was a stretch of that race. I know he was the favorite, so he was supposed to win, but he looked like he was never going to get there, and then in the blink of an eye, he starts flying, and he drew off and won. And then if you kind of work back from the Kentucky Derby, this new school of training, they probably wanted to get 2 starts into him so that the Derby was his 3rd off the layoff. He comes back. He wasn't working particularly well going into the Fountain of Youth. In fact, he really wasn't bet probably. He ended up taking late money, but he wasn't talked about going into that race. He just went off 3 to 1. He was last. He was urged along at the back of the field, and I think he showed his talent level that he may not have been 100% sharp that day and still was able to run past Burnham Square, run down River Thames, and nail him on the money. And then came back in the Florida Derby. Unfortunately, Brad Cox lost to Pan Street. I was very confident that Tapan Street was going to run well. Brad Cox and Luis Saez were going to get their first real Derby win together because Saez obviously disqualified. Brad Cox was placed later. So neither one of them have had that Derby night to enjoy it, even though they crossed the wire first or won the race. So I thought they were going to get it. Tapan Street was second to him. He had Manny Franco. It was the first time Manny was aboard this horse. You get back to Junior Alvarado. He knows this horse. He's put together nice races with Junior. 3rd start off the layoff. Godolphin owns the 12 East Avenue. So I think they have to be telling East Avenue to make sure the pace is somewhat honest so that Sovereignty can get a pace to close into. I think he's the best closer in the race. And if he runs his A game, I think his A game is the best.
All right, 19 Chunk of Gold. Jareth Loveberry picks up the ride for Ethan West. Coming off of a second-place effort in the Louisiana Derby, probably one of the more lightly raced horses coming into this event with only 1 star as a 2-year-old.
This is a cool little horse, $2,500, and you got yourself in the Kentucky Derby where he's made $350,000 just in 4 starts. There's no knocks on him. He's finished second in both tries. Jareth Loveberry obviously rode 2 fills and gave him a great ride in the Kentucky Derby. So the jockey in his 1 try was very good. 2 seconds. He's been a big price in both of them, but he hasn't had the greatest of setups. He's had excuses, and he's raced well. Again, I'm not 1,000% sure on how much I really like these horses out of Louisiana, but I wouldn't talk anyone off this horse at a big price.
I think I would use this horse probably underneath in my exotics because this is a horse that, like Dallas, when Dallas Stewart ends up in the Derby or the Preakness, I always have to use him underneath because he always hits a big odds.
Yeah, I don't know if I can really see this horse winning. Cool story again, $2,500 purchase, and he's in the Kentucky Derby with horses that are $1.2 million. So it just shows you just need luck to get there, but I don't think he can win. But I wouldn't be shocked if he hit the board.
All right, number 20 is Owen Almighty. Brian Lynch conditions. Javier Castellano picks up the mount, was 6th in the Bluegrass after winning the Tampa Bay Derby, and then of course was 2nd in the Sam F. Davis. And the Tampa Bay Derby was kind of a mess. They had all sorts of weather and power issues and things of that sort. So winning through all of that adversity was great. I was really disappointed in the Bluegrass though.
Yeah. I don't like horses just for the fact that Brian Lynch didn't want to race in the Kentucky Derby. He said after the Tampa Bay Derby that they weren't planning on running in the Derby. He thought he was better shorter. He thought that was probably as far as he wanted to go. He set a really easy pace and took advantage of it and won. Then they went in the Bluegrass anyways, and he showed that he probably doesn't want to go that far, and
Yep.
the trainer was right. And then they still entered him in the Kentucky Derby. I think this horse that would have been better suited in the Pat Day Mile, which is on the undercard, or just in some shorter stakes down the road. I don't think he wants to go a mile and a quarter. From post 20, he has to go
Yes.
to the front. They said they're not going to put him on the lead, but what kind of trip is he going to get? A horse that doesn't want to go a mile and a quarter, a horse that's going to be wide, and a horse that's probably not going to get to control things. There's just too much up against him for me.
All right, and 21 is Baeza. This is the horse that I am going with. The John Sheriff's trainee, Flavian Pratt, is going to pick up the mount here. Another very lightly raced colt by the sire McKinsey. Was 1 for 3, but has hit the board in all 3 of his starts this year after not hitting the board again.
Mage, the 2024 Belmont and Haskell winner, Dornoch. This is her 4th baby. The first one was a good one too, but the last 2 babies that she had before Baeza have gone on to win classic races at a mile and a quarter. This horse is going to get the distance. $1.2 million. Obviously, I don't know why he raced on turf in his first start because he's all dirt. You can almost just ignore it. It's almost like they just wanted to get him a race because maybe the maiden dirt race didn't fill or something. I'm ignoring the race at Del Mar. The 3 races at Santa Anita, he was 2nd to Rodriguez, he won the Wood Memorial.
Yep.
And then you came back and he won easy, pretty much wrapped up in the maiden special, and then they had no choice but to run in the Santa Anita Derby because they had to get him. If they want to get into the Derby, you need points. They did skip the race in March, so that could be maybe a good sign. Maybe they really liked him and said, we can run 1st or 2nd in the Santa Anita Derby. He made the first move. Journalism got shuffled. He made the move, and he got caught from behind. It was his first start going a mile and an eighth, first start in Graded Stakes Company, and just 3rd start on dirt. So now you got 4th start. He's progressed every start. He went up 6 points, then 8 points. If he even takes any step forward and goes up 1 point, 102 in this race, I'm definitely using Baeza. I really like him. I was hoping he didn't get in for the sake of the post and that you could bet him in the Preakness because I think this is a very talented horse. And like I said, his brothers are very good in Mage and Dornoch. So a very strong family.
All right, top pick of the Derby is?
18 Sovereignty.
I'm going with 21 Baeza. Hey, that is the Kentucky Derby preview show here at MGM Northfield Park. Still lots going on. Make sure to check out some of the fair foods that are outside as well as the bands. Lots going on. You can head over to the sports book and wager on the Kentucky Derby. You can bet it here throughout the day. It's been a great day of racing thus far. For Kenny Livingood, I'm Michael Carter. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you guys at the Preakness.